Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery, a beautiful novel originally written in French, translated into English, and one that I've enjoyed actually discussing with some friends from both France and the United States. It's in some ways a novel about living in an apartment in Paris. It has the feel of a play disguised as a novel. So we have a small group of characters in a confined space, more or less. But in a broader sense, and in the way that I would hope you would appreciate the novel if you have a chance to read it, it's how people of different ages and backgrounds come to find wisdom unexpectedly. Now, one of the unexpected ways we start the novel is with Paloma Jas, this young 12-year-old girl who tells us this. It's all well and good to have profound thoughts on a regular basis, but I think it's not enough. Well, I mean, I'm going to commit suicide and set the house on fire in a few months. Obviously, I can't assume I have time at my disposal. Therefore, I have to do something substantial with the little I do have. Okay, so we're 37 pages in, and this young person is telling you that she is going to commit suicide. And as such, this horrible event hangs over you for the first part, I would say, of the novel until you realize, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, you realize that she's realizing that the stance of hers is a silly one for any number of reasons. But it sort of wakes you up if you think you're just reading something light and complacent. You're told pretty early on, Barbary signals to you, I do want to talk about important things. And I think that's part of the magic of the novel is it doesn't present the idea, I'm going to talk about something important. Here it is. Instead, what she gives us are interludes, moments, interactions between friends in which profound ideas are shared for your contemplation, not because they themselves deliver wisdom, but because they're thinking about, in a sense, wisdom, thinking about the process of obtaining wisdom in some ways. Kakuzo Okukura, the author of the Book of Tea, laments the rebellion of the Mongolian tribes in the 13th century, not because it brought death and desolation, but because it destroyed one of the creations of the Song dynasty, the most precious among them, the art of tea. Like Okakura, I know that tea is no minor beverage. When tea becomes ritual, it takes its place at the heart of our ability to see greatness in small things. Where is beauty to be found? In great things that, like everything else, are doomed to die, or in small things that aspire to nothing, yet know how to set a jewel of infinity in a single moment. The tea ritual, such a precise repetition of the same gestures and the same tastes, accession to simple, authentic, and refined sensations, a license given to all, at little cost, to become aristocrats of taste, because tea is the beverage of the wealthy and of the poor. The tea ritual, therefore, has the extraordinary virtue of introducing into the absurdity of our lives an aperture of serene harmony. Yes, the world may aspire to vacuousness, lost souls mourn beauty, insignificance surrounds us. Then let us drink a cup of tea. Silence descends, one hears the wind outside. Autumn leaves rustle and take flight. The cat sleeps in a warm pool of light, and with each swallow, time is sublimed. So, apart obviously from the beautiful prose in which these ideas are communicated, we are in a sense taken to the tea ritual. If you've never experienced one, I can't say that I've experienced too many. The last one I had was a couple years ago, maybe no, not a couple years ago, last summer in Georgia, the country of Georgia. Visited a gentleman who had a tea shop there and who had taken some wild green tea from China and was growing it in Georgia. And he went through this tea ceremony and it was pouring of this and warming up the cup with hot water and pouring the tea into different places. And it had such a relaxing attitude toward it. I'm sure I didn't appreciate it as much as somebody who has perhaps experienced a tea ceremony many times. But that along with, I don't know why, because I thought of dried leaves, I thought of tobacco ceremonies as well, that this is very popular in Native American cultures, that you take these dried elements of the earth, you do something with it that only humans would do, and then that is part of a ceremony. So same thing here. These are just dried leaves, but humans imbue them with meaning, and then they take on something else. And this tea ceremony is also important in Chinese culture. This is part of marriage. So if you present the tea to the oldest male in the family, and it's presented back to you. There's a ritual in which this represents the marriage. So tea is really important in Asian culture. I grew up with tea being important. And tea is actually really important in Paris as well. There's a number of shops that just sell tea, and the people there are experts. I remember the very first time I went into one of these famous Paris tea shops, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to get some green tea. And the person said, well, what region were you thinking about? I thought, region? I just came to get green tea. I don't know anything clearly. And they said, well, tell me what are you looking for in your green tea? What sort of elements, tasty notes? And he saw that I was still a bit bewildered. And so he said, well, are you looking for more rice? Are you looking for more fragrance? And I said, yes, rice. And he says, okay, well, I think we should look at Korea. And then we talked about different regions of Korea in which I could get maybe the flavors I was looking for. But I was fascinated with this. But this goes back to what I'm talking about here, is that the prose here is delivering this notion of what tea can be for us, that it's something for the rich, for the poor. But within the setting of the book, which can't get too much into as in a short review, this is a moment where our concierge, the woman who is in charge of the building in Paris, she lets people, she takes packages, she accepts the mail, she's responsible for cleaning. She's the guardian is another name this is given to these people in Paris. And she's there, and she has one very close friend, and these moments, it's not a tea ceremony, but they share tea together, and she's contemplating the importance of the ceremony. But I think what's interesting about the construction of the novel is that on the very next page, Paloma, who, remember, we were introduced to her very on as this precocious girl who's going to commit suicide and set fire to her family's apartment, she talks about coffee and her father. Every morning, even if there's been a nighttime session and he has only slept 2 hours, he gets up at 6 and reads his paper while he drinks a strong cup of coffee. In this way, Papa constructs himself each day. I say constructs himself because I think that each time it's a new construction, as if everything has been reduced to ashes during the night and he has to start from scratch. In our world, that's the way you live your grown-up life. You must constantly rebuild your identity as an adult. The way it's been put together, it is wobbly, ephemeral, and flat and fragile. It cloaks despair, and when you're alone in front of the mirror, it tells you the lies you need to believe. For Papa, the newspaper and the coffee are magic wands that transform him into an important man, like a pumpkin into a coach. Of course, he finds this very satisfying. I never see him as calm and relaxed as when he's sitting drinking his 6 o'clock coffee. But it's such a price. You pay such a price when you lead a false life. When the mask is taken away, when there's a crisis, and there's always a crisis at some point among mortals. The truth is terrible. And of course you're thinking, this is some 12-year-old girl, where is she getting these ideas? But this lone coffee ritual, in contrast to the tea ritual shared with a friend, and this isn't, I'm not taking a side on coffee or tea, I like both. I don't think that's important. It's the same thing with cat people or dog people. I like both animals. I don't need to get into wars about insignificant things. But about coffee here as this tool you use to construct. Falsely, I think people don't realize there are plenty of teas that have a lot of caffeine. So it isn't, I think sometimes we get focused on a simple chemical reading of coffee versus tea, but there is clearly a distinction between the two beverages in terms of what is used for what. And this idea of using coffee to construct your day as opposing tea to, in a sense, deconstruct and to take time away and to relax. I think that's really interesting. And I think that Barbery is intentional in putting that on opposing pages. We finish the tea ceremony on this page, and then on the very next page, Paloma is talking about her dad and coffee. So I don't think it's accidental, and I think it's something interesting to contemplate. Not because it's so important or so profound in itself, but we can sometimes lose track of the rituals we use to make sense of our day or to get us on the right path. She's saying that he needs his coffee in order to be calm and set his day on the right path. And I think sometimes we do well to dig into what our rituals are. And is it the ritual? Is it the elements of the ritual? Can we mess with that ritual a little bit? That's something I've admired about Tim Ferriss for many years. I'll put a review to his for our work week that I did a review on in the description as well as a card. But he's always been good over the years about willing to make himself a guinea pig, ask questions about why do I do what I do, and am I willing to change things up to see if I could improve. So here is my profound thought for the day. Once again, we're getting the narration from the young girl. This is the first time I have met someone who seeks out people and who sees beyond. That may seem trivial, but I think it is profound all the same. We never look beyond our assumptions, and, what's worse, we have given up trying to meet others. We just meet ourselves. We don't recognize each other because other people have become our permanent mirrors. If we actually realize this, if we were to become aware of the fact that we are only ever looking at ourselves in the other person, that we are alone in the wilderness, we would go crazy. Fascinating idea, and I think one that's further compounded in a world of cell phones. So whether you're in a waiting room, whether you're on public transportation, whether you're on an airplane, whether you're stopped at a stoplight and you turn left and right to see who's driving next to you, people are on their phones all the time. I don't think being on the phone is itself a bad thing, because I think there are important things that can be accomplished. You might be watching this video on a phone. But the question is, what am I giving up for giving all of my attention to the phone? Of not allowing myself to simply put the phone sometimes and look out, look at the people around, and really to see them for who they are, rather than only to assess whether these people should be of any significance to me. I think that's a really key idea. We have given up trying to meet others, we just meet ourselves. What is it in friendships that we are seeking? Are we seeking solely a mirror? Are we seeking solely something that can affirm us? And this isn't to say that shared values are not important. In fact, I think the most solid friendships are built on shared values. But what is it that you are seeking in that friendship with that other person? Are you simply seeking affirmation and a mirror for yourself? If so, that friendship isn't necessarily going to stand the test of time, and it may not be a fruitful, helpful relationship to you despite appearances. Think about that when you spend time with your phone. As I say, I don't think the phone in and of itself is a bad thing. I just think we don't give ourselves enough time away from the phone. And I'm speaking to myself as well. I think I'm just as guilty as this as anyone else. But reading a book like this, reading a thought like this, is a chance for us to contemplate, what is it that we are seeking in others? Have we given up trying to meet others? Are we simply looking for reflections of ourselves? Are we giving all of our time over to our phones? I think that's worth considering. Last thing I'll leave you with today is interior design, which is a big deal in a Paris apartment. And I didn't realize this until I was moving out of one of my apartments in the 19th. And when I say one of my apartments, I've had different apartments in Paris that I've lived in, not that I have multiple apartments. I was moving out of an apartment in the 19th, and my landlady was selling the apartment. And I didn't realize this concretely. I had glimpsed it over the years, but Parisians are very big on remaking a space as their own. So even though you may have a nice layout, the Parisians don't really consider an apartment their own until they've made a change to it. It could be, and is most often, I think, a complete change in which rooms are destroyed and new spaces are created. Or sometimes it's minor enough where someone can say, oh, it was this way when I moved in, but I added this one thing because I thought it'd be really important. And they've made their mark on that apartment. Well, what that implies is that when someone buys an apartment in Paris, they don't expect anything to come with it. And there's no value added. So if, for example, if you leave kitchen cabinets in the kitchen, you're not going to get any more money for them than if they were gone, because the idea is I'm going to completely remake this place. So as I was moving out of the apartment, and I was actually moving out to the French countryside for what was going to be a couple years, I didn't know that at the time, but very happy 2 years in the French countryside. The idea was, I said, what if I sell these cabinets? Do you want the money? She said, no. If you take care of it, you keep the money. So I mean, I remember selling these fixtures, and people literally came by the house, and I sold, cabinets and different fixtures, shelves that the new owner probably wasn't going to want, and the old owner didn't care about. This is a long story to say that what is it that our interior design says about ourselves? Are we decorating for ourselves, or are we decorating for others? Now, In the example of this set design that you see behind you, it's both. I live in this space, so I need it to serve me. But given that the camera is focused this way from my desk, which you can't see because that's where the camera is, I also want it to be a reflection of things I'm working on, my own values, things that matter to me. And so when you see that, some of it is for you as the viewer, but ideally it's for me as well. Part of the challenge is that in interior design, sometimes we get used to what's around us and we don't appreciate it as much as people, strangers who come into our space, come into our lives, and they look and they ask questions about things that we don't think about, maybe because it's there all the time. Perhaps we have a painting, it's always been there, and someone says, "Oh, I didn't know that about the painting." And hopefully they point out something maybe you haven't noticed. And in an age of video calls, I think very often, at least among the thoughtful, interior design is as much for you as it is for others. It has probably always been that case, but in our interconnected world in which you can be brought into people's offices and brought into people's bedrooms without ever possibly being there physically, I think it's a great opportunity to reflect and ask questions about why certain things are where they are, what those mean to those people, etc. And so as our protagonist is saying here with her friend, I sit meditating, savoring the unexpected and incongruous nature of our conversation. Who has ever heard of a maid and a concierge making use of their afternoon break to ponder the cultural significance of interior decoration? You'd be surprised by what ordinary little people come out with. They may prefer stories to theories, anecdotes to concepts, images to ideas. That doesn't stop them from philosophizing. So, have our civilizations become so destitute that we can only live in our fear of want? Can we only enjoy our possessions or our senses when we are certain that we shall always be able to enjoy them? Perhaps the Japanese have learned that you can only savor a pleasure when you know it is ephemeral and unique. Armed with this knowledge, they are yet able to weave their lives. I think that's a fine place to end this short review. The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery. If you'd like to support this channel, one of the ways you can do so is by buying a copy using the link in the description below. You can also support the channel for free by hitting like, subscribe, sharing this with people who are interested in French novels, novels about Paris, novels about France, or in a sense, personal development novels, novels that ask us questions about the way that we perceive our lives and our surroundings. If you'd like to thank me for this presentation, you can consider using Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal. There are links for that below. If you want to support my work on an ongoing basis, there's Patreon and YouTube membership. You'll get early access to releases like this one, to videos like this one, as well as videos that I do not release to the general public that are just member exclusive. If you'd like to nominate a book for the future, my Amazon wish list is below. You'll see all sorts of books there, books that feature novels like this one, but you also see books on Palestine. And obviously that's for my Palestine bookshelf channel. If you're interested, you can navigate over there. But if you want to nominate books for this channel, don't pick a book on Palestine. That's for a different channel, different project. And if you buy it and send it my way, I will review it, hopefully in a timely manner. Until next time, enjoy your reading.